All right, movie review for Silverado, 1985, directed by Lawrence Kasdan, written by Lawrence Kasdan and Mark Kasdan. Is that like his brother? Oh, he's actually a writer on Horizon, an American Saga. Interesting. So I've heard of this movie for a long time. It's got a great cast. And I gotta say, yeah, I liked it. It's a good old school Western. Um, Strong direction by Lawrence Kasdan. You know, he wrote Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's a good writer. Although he did have a hand in was it The Force Awakens? Because I think he had a, let's see, let's look at his writing IMDb. He did help write Shadows of the Empire, the video game, which is cool. Yeah, he helped write Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, Raiders of the Lost Ark. So, Wyatt Earp. So, good writer. I don't really blame him for what happened with Star Wars, you know. And then he helped write Solo, a Star Wars story with, I believe, his son. So, but this is a fun movie. So the cast is amazing. Kevin Kline's great in this. Scott Glenn, Kevin Costner, Rosanna Arquette. John Cleese is even in like a one scene where he's the sheriff of a local town. Brian Dennehy, Danny Glover, Jeff Goldblum's in it. Linda Hunt. So it's got a huge, great cast. Jeff Fahey. And basically, Kevin Kline is the star. It is like there's a lot of people in the movie, but I would say, Kevin Kline is the star, I would say. And I like how Roger Ebert put it. And if you could do me a favor and smash that like button, that'd be great. It really helps the channel. And back to the review. So, Silverado is the work of Lawrence Kasdan, the man who wrote Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it has some of the same reckless brilliance about it. It's a story of four cowboys who join up together, ride into town, refuse to knuckle under the corrupt sheriff, who's Brian Dennehy, and end up fighting for justice. And this is all spoilers. Been out for a long time. If you like westerns, if you like that cast, and Lawrence Kasdan's writing, then I would say check it out. It's about 2 hours 10 minutes. So they end up fighting for justice. This is a story you will agree that has been told before. What distinguishes Kasdan's telling of it is the style and energy he brings to the project. The cowboys include a sweet-faced young man who hopes to make his fortune, Kevin Kline, his goofy brother, Kevin Costner, well, Kevin Costner is actually Scott Glenn's brother in the movie, but his goofy brother, Kevin Costner, that's kind of an odd error from Roger Ebert, but whatever. A black man who vows his father's vengeance for his father's murder, Danny Glover, and a Tacton loner, Scott Glenn, who gets restless when he's not a long way from civilization. They meet along the way after Glenn saves Kline from the death in the desert. Yeah, basically, Kevin Kline was left for dead in the desert, and they took like his boots, his hat, his horse, his guns, everything. And he happens to come across him in the desert, and Scott Glenn saves his life. Together they help Costner escape from jail. Joining up with Glover, they ride on to the next town, Silverado, which is dominated by a slick sheriff, Brian Dennehy, in a gambling saloon run by a formidably competent little woman named Stella Linda Hunt, in a scene-stealing performance. Yeah, she's pretty good. Yeah, she pretty much strikes up a friendship with Kevin Kline. Brian Denny, who's pretty much the villain in the movie, is the sheriff of Silverado and owns that tavern. But it's kind of an interesting performance from Dennehy because he is the villain, but he's kind of reasonable in some ways. Like with Kevin Kline, when he goes into the first town, this is before Silverado, and he has like nothing. Scott Glenn gives him like $1 because he doesn't have much money. And then he goes and buys the cheapest gun possible because he sees one of the guys who stole some of his stuff. Buys one of the cheapest guns possible and a bullet. The gun's like falling apart. And then he kills the guy, takes his stuff, convinces their local sheriff that it's his stuff. And Brian Denny, he already knew Kevin Kline, and he gives him like $13 and buys him a bunch of gear. So he's not totally unlikable. So too many westerns in the last 15 years have been elegies to a dead past, played out by actors remembering the cowboy roles of the youth. Remember If You Can, the last western of Robert Mitchum, Randolph Scott, John Wayne, Kirk Douglas. Silverado contains a group of talented young actors, and this is not their last western, but in many cases their first. The movie is set at a time when the West was still being opened up, when there was still opportunity there, and when the bad guys were still so unsophisticated they could fall for a dumb trick like getting trapped in a box canyon. What does it prove? This movie about a bunch of cowboys being held by honor. This movie about bartender philosophers, evil sheriffs, and young pioneer women. With lines like, "My beauty will pass someday, but the land will only grow more beautiful." What does it prove? That the Western myth is most at home in the setting of innocence, that Silverado understands that, and that somewhere in our hearts there may still be memories of little boys and girls who got to be the good guys in the long walk home. So yeah, so he liked it. He gave it 3.5 out of 4 stars. I'd say I pretty much agree with that. But yeah, like I said, it's a solid movie. Basically, Kevin Kline's, has a friendship with Scott Glenn. Kevin Costner's not in it that much. He's in it a little bit. Like, they break him out of jail. This is before they go to Silverado. They help then Danny Glover out because some people are being racist to him and kind of want to start trouble with him in town, and they kind of back him up. And this pays off later because Danny Glover is like a crack shot with a rifle. He's a great rifleman. And then later in the movie, he helps him out. Some guys murder Danny Glover's father, kick him off his land. His mother dies because she was sick. But it's nice to see Danny Glover in a Western. John Cleese is the sheriff in that town when they're trying to start trouble with Danny Glover. And he even kicks him out of town. But they wanted him to pay for damages that they caused because they attacked Danny Glover. And they wanted to basically screw him over. And John Cleese is like, "No, you attacked this man." And then Danny Glover's like, "Well, I just want to have some food and then go to bed." And then John Cleese is like, "No, you need to get out of my town." So kind of shows like morally ambiguous the West was, because John Cleese knows that this will start problems, so he just wants him out of the town. He doesn't really care. But it's just funny to see John Cleese in a Western. Then Danny Glover finds out about his family, His sister is works in Silverado. She becomes important later. She's kind of having a kind of semi-romance with Jeff Goldblum. Unfortunately, Jeff Goldblum, character named Slick, he basically gets paid off by Brian Dennehy, and then him and Danny Glover come to blows because he's trying to find Danny Glover's sister to turn her into Brian Dennehy, and then he ends up killing Jeff Goldblum. But there's a lot of things going on in this plot. I won't go through them all. It's, the movie's over 2 hours long. There's definitely a lot of stuff going on in this movie, and I just think the overall story's really good, especially like the last half. I think it gets really good because Brian Dennehy's in it more. I'm a big fan of Brian Dennehy. He's a great actor. Just whenever he's on screen, just just very watchable actor. I wonder how tall he was. He seems like just a huge, just a huge Irishman. But the thing I like about his character in this is he's not just a mustache twirling kind of stupid villain. Like, you kind of get his motivations, and he's kind of reasonable because Kevin Kline ends up getting a job with him, working at the saloon. He kicks out this other guy who's stealing money and is a drunk, because him, Stella, Linda Hunt, and Brian Dennehy, all three were running the saloon, and he kicks him out. And then that guy ends up coming back with a gun trying to kill Brian Dennehy, and then he kills him. And in that scene, they're kind of like shocked and looking at Brian Dennehy like he's evil. But the guy came back with a gun. I mean, he's gonna kill Brian Dennehy. What is he supposed to do? I didn't quite understand that, because I watched the scene, like, that's what happened. And Linda Hunt even warns Brian Dennehy, saying he'll kill you. But then they're kind of angry at him for it. I didn't really get that, but anyways, he gives Kevin Kline a job, and then later he basically wants him to be one of his henchmen, one of his goons, and he won't do it because Kevin Kline really, I think, doesn't want to work for anyone except for himself. That's the kind of feel I get from the character. And the end of the movie is they have a shootout, and Kevin Kline is like an amazing shot. So I think you can guess who wins, but yeah, that's about it. Just a quick review for Silverado, 1985, solid Western.